Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Sunday Messages. And today's episode is going to be full of all sorts of story times and fun coincidences that I will tell you about with Marilyn Monroe, all sorts of other things. A thought that I had yesterday that I'm going to share with you. I'm going to tell you a story about what happened yesterday. All sorts of things in this episode. So it is somewhat of a mixed bag, but I'm sure you will enjoy. And I will also be telling you about how I ended up with Marilyn Monroe's nudes on my coffee table and I had no clue. So let's go ahead and do some housekeeping really quick. If you are not signed up for my newsletter, what are you doing? It's amazing. It comes out every Sunday. And you get a little tarot reading from me that is written. It's like magic in your inbox every single Sunday. The second thing that I want to mention is that the Lost Teachings of Marilyn Monroe start on February 23rd. There are 2 classes per week. It is a 4-week container with me and Marilyn. I'm translating. She's the one who's actually providing all of the teachings, all of the embodiment work that we're going to be doing. And this is revolving around all things feminine energetics, all things magnetism, beauty, relationships, desirability, and all of the topics that Marilyn wants to share with the world. All of the teachings that she didn't have the ability to deliver when she had an earth body. So she hit me up. Now we're doing the class. Here we go. And the other piece that is really, really important is there is an entire week dedicated to receiving. So I have been working with her for well over a year. And when I tell you she blows my mind, every time I go into meditation with her, I mean it. I really, really mean it. You should see the note section of my phone. It's crazy. I feel like I can't even write fast enough when she's communicating with me. It's unbelievable. So if I'm getting my mind blown, you're definitely going to have your mind blown. And the other thing that I'm going to be telling you some stories about today is just all of these different pieces of information that I've learned about her that have just shocked me because I'm like, you were behind that? You're the one who did that? You're the one who went first? You did that? It's just endlessly like that. And the thing that has been the most, I've been the most intentional about is not consuming stuff like biographies or TV shows or anything like that about her, or even like sometimes people will do historical videos on TikTok about her. I really try to insulate myself from all of that stuff because I don't want it to taint what I get from her. So I really try to keep it as pure as possible because I know there's a lot of fuzzy information. And if someone is like writing a biography, obviously they are going to have a specific tone that they're writing it from, a specific perspective that they're holding as they're writing it. And so it's really difficult to get pure information. And so I do my best to just stick to the source, although I will be reading a passage from this book today for you because it just, you'll get it. When I read it, you'll understand why I'm reading it and how this plays into the Lost Teachings of Marilyn Monroe. So once again, February 23rd is when we have the very first lecture. That's when we open things up. And the link will be in the description box or the show notes or wherever you are listening to this. That is where it will be. And I can't wait to see you inside. So one of the big things that has been coming up in my work and for myself personally is you get to have it all. You get to have every single thing that you want. There are no limits. This is something that I firmly believe, and this is what I support people in creating in their own lives. And in my experience working with people, a lot of the time this actually gets completely overlooked. This is not something that very many people are anchored into a lot of the time. And of course, the reason for this is because there's so much conditioning around you don't need that, it's not necessary, and for whatever reason, humans decided to constantly put themselves in a state of, if I don't need it, I shouldn't have it, or I shouldn't ask, or I shouldn't claim it, or I shouldn't decide that I'm going to do that or be that or have that or whatever. So the idea of what do you want, or you can have whatever you want, is almost an abstraction when it really comes down to it. Because if I present the question, what do you want? It's a pretty overwhelming experience because more than likely there's a lot of things that you want. So I see two things happen with this. One is you either shut yourself down and give yourself 50,000 reasons why it's not necessary. So what you're basically saying is, if you don't need it, if it's not a life or death situation, you shouldn't want it. Wanting, desiring, is a good enough reason. Wanting it is enough of a reason to allow yourself to have something. Now, depending on the situation, depending on your alignment, that doesn't mean that right this moment that you're necessarily ready for that, or this is the right moment to make that purchase or make that decision, right? There's all sorts of nooks and crannies where there's variance to this. But wanting something is enough. Wanting things, desiring things is the spice of life. If you took Heaven's Nectar, that masterclass that I had, it's also available for purchase if you want to get your hands on it. It's amazing. You definitely should get in. So if you were in Heaven's Nectar, the first day is called Sacred Hunger. So I'm a huge advocate for, yes, be hungry. Yes, want things. Yes, desire things. It's good for you. Seriously. It is not necessary for you to push yourself to the point of being in a position where you need it in order to receive it. Need is not the prerequisite for this stuff. It's just not. And it's going to be very painful for you if needing stuff is the breaking point in which you allow yourself to have something. That is just a shitty way to live. So if you just own the fact that, yes, you want things, it's going to make your life a lot easier. Okay, so the second thing that happens when I bring up this question of what do you want is there's this thing that happens where you say, I want this, but blah, blah, blah. Here's all of the reasons why it's complicated or unrealistic, or it seems kind of like a pipe dream, and you start building a case against your own desire rather than acknowledging that the desire is sacred, the desire is holy, the desire is something that is divinely given to you. Rather than just leaning into the divinity of it, you start making up weird stuff. And a lot of the time it's coming from a bunch of different places. It's coming from parents, it's coming from family, it's coming from a friend who has a crappy belief and you've adopted as your own, or some type of shortage belief or a scarcity belief that has come from someone or something or someone that you consider to be an expert. There's all sorts of places where these thought forms can lurk. And if you're not super, super disciplined in what's going on in your mental body, because it is a discipline, let me tell you, it never stops. It is a lifelong discipline, and it is a lifelong practice of refinement. So the bottom line is all of the things that you desire, all of the things that you want, all of the things that you would take great pleasure in are absolutely available to you. But humans, because of all the conditioning, all the stories, all of the scarcity, all of the whatever nastiness and clutter that has been lurking around, and that you have been exposed to over the course of your life, when I say something like you can have whatever you want, for the vast majority of people, that statement sounds crazy, or it sounds like, again, a pipe dream. There's a lot of people that shift into disbelief or start knocking away this statement and try to make it shaky. No. Because of this, and this, I'm not fully buying into that idea. And I will be the first to tell you that even though I didn't realize it, I was also falling into that camp. It was something where I was going into things like, yeah, anything is possible. Sure, like I understand that as a philosophy, but free will. Or, yeah, anything is possible, but this, that, and the other thing. But soul contracts, hashtag soul contracts, right? Whatever the case may be. I was still shifting into this idea that statement is not ultimately correct. That statement is not ultimately true. It wasn't until I started working with Marilyn at the end of 2020 and into 2021 that I was really cracked open to, you get to have everything that you want. Every desire gets to be fulfilled. And the interesting thing about this is that even though I have felt a great deal of conviction and a whole lot of confidence in my ability to create, that's always been a strength. The crazy thing is that this has infinite depth. There's actually so much more that you're probably not even conscious of right this moment, because there are things you have not allowed yourself to want, or even looked in that direction, or gone down the path of receiving desires to the point where more get cracked open. So the experience of having a plateau a lot of the time has to do with either you're cutting yourself off at the knees and you're not allowing yourself to just want what you want. And the second reason for a plateau that I see with people, particularly in creation, is their vision isn't as big as they can allow it. And so if you're staying away from a big vision in order to avoid big desire, a lot of the time it doesn't feel as intense. There isn't as much fuel behind it. Because the bigger the desire, the bigger the vision, the grander the dream, the more becomes available to you. And so this is really a game of what realm do you allow yourself to play into? How far are you willing to go? How far are you willing to aim? Because the farther you aim, the crazier this work gets, the crazier the manifestation stuff gets, in all of the right ways, all of the good ways. And I did not, the reason why this even opened up to me was because I have always felt that with money. Money was actually really easy for me to understand infinite depth, infinite possibility, and money has been the easiest thing for me to work with over the years because there's not the human aspects that you're intersecting with. So it's very clean. It's just kind of like creating an inanimate object. That's pretty easy stuff when it comes to manifestation. Relationships, people working with my manifestations and the relationships that I have in my life, that is actually what opened up my work with Marilyn. And that's also what opened up my ability to see the infinite nature of creation even more. Because money, there's a lot to say about money, but a lot of the time, at a certain point, it can just become more and more cash until your relationship with it shifts. That's a whole other conversation I'm not going to get into here. But what really opened me up to the intricacies of creation and timing and understanding all of these nuances has really been through the path of relationships. Relationships are the most revealing. Relationships for a lot of people are the stickiest. Like I mentioned before, that free will thing really screws people up in terms of how they're seeing themselves navigate relationships, all sorts of stuff like that. And so in working with Marilyn, there was this moment in meditation where it really, really clicked for me through her. And the key thing here is when you're looking at something super ethereal like God, infinite love, the divine, there's something about it that feels very disconnected from the human experience. But when it started coming through Marilyn to me, another human who had a human body and a human experience and a soul that was in form and walked this earth just like I am, for whatever reason, receiving it from her, hearing it from her, and then also knowing bits and pieces of her story and just how magnetic she was and just how enchanting she was and how desired she was and how in her life she broke infinite rules, had a very unconventional life, particularly at that time. And yet everything was at her fingertips. And not only that, but the interesting thing about her life and her experience was how she generated power by doing something first or breaking a rule or bending things in her favor and it going well. Doing something that is abnormal or that is frowned upon socially, and then it goes really well. Because it's her. That's the key thing. It's her energy that's making that happen. And this is a key thing when it comes to powerful people. We say this all the time, but we view it in a really distorted way. You may have watched my video on Instagram called The Politician Power Code, where I basically share that if a politician is showing you that something can be done, that is the level of power that you have within you. So instead of using this energy, a lot of people bitch about people who break the rules. Instead of accessing your inner explorer or the mischief maker, the rebel, the pioneer, these archetypes that can really allow you to access your power, people complain. When we say it all the time, like, oh, they're just getting away with that because they have status. They're just getting away with that because they're a celebrity. No, that is not how Marilyn's story started. That's not what happened. She grew up in foster homes. She was working in a factory. She got married when she was like 16, worked in a factory, was randomly found one day. Started taking nude photos, super controversial. So now we have someone who is taking nude photographs during a time when that is not okay. So now she's the pioneer of nudes. Because she did it, that made it okay. Not because it's her who's doing it. No. But because of how lined up her energy was when she was doing it. And this is also what really takes it over the edge for me when it comes to working with her. And this is why I am obsessed. This is why I go into meditation for hours with her. This is why. Because you have a blend of someone who was highly emotional, highly sensitive, had a really traumatic upbringing, was wildly successful, an incredible creator, extremely magnetic, still a full human with her own problems and her own things that she had to navigate in her lifetime, was an absolute rebel, absolute rule breaker, all of these things, all of these different dimensions, nooks, crannies, like there is so much here. I wish that I could transfer how much power she held in her lifetime. I wish I could get you to see it exactly how I'm seeing it. Because I'm like, you don't understand. She was alive in the 50s. Like her career took off in the 50s. Do you have any clue how uptight it was back then? She's out here getting divorced and taking nudes. In the 50s. There was such a devotion on her part to do whatever she wanted, whenever she wanted, however she wanted. It was absolute certainty and absolute clarity that she was going to do it her way no matter what. She was going to get it no matter what. That was more of the energetic blueprint that she set up. And so in my time working with her, that was one of the big things that came through for me, was just how much she gave me a real perspective of what you can have whatever you want means. I was not getting it before I worked with her. So Marilyn understood fully that even if it wasn't socially acceptable, even if it had never been done before or it was frowned upon, it didn't matter. Because again, she gets to have whatever she wants. She gets to step into whatever she wants. This gets to go her way, no matter what. And without going too deep into the seduction aspect of it, the way she was using her energy really left people wanting to give her even more. And this is something that I've actually been practicing for a really long time, is the energetic pattern of people wanting to love me, wanting to shower me with good things, wanting to be good to me, wanting to, I know so many of you love that mantra, people love to pay me. That's a classic. We all love that mantra. And that can apply to so many different areas of life in terms of people love to be good to me. What if you started playing with that more? What if people love being good to you? What if people love honoring your boundaries? What if? The core point, the core mission of me working with Marilyn and putting out the lost teachings of Marilyn Monroe is for you to get whatever you want and feel hot in the process. Because I don't know about you, but how it is for me is if it doesn't feel sexy, I probably don't want it. If I don't feel sexy in the clothes, I probably don't want them. If the house didn't feel sexy, I wasn't going to get it. If the things that I purchase don't inspire that sensuality within me, I don't want anything to do with it. And a lot of this came from my pickiness, if you will, comes from working with her. Her energy is so potent and magnetic that even decades after she died, people are still talking about her, writing about her, including her in movies, TV shows, all sorts of stuff, writing books, making TikToks. She is still the talk of the town, and she's dead. My God, who doesn't want that kind of power? Who doesn't want that level of magnetism? Are you kidding me? Absolutely. So let me tell you the story of these nudes. So back in 2020, I bought myself this coffee table book, and it is the Playmate book. So if you don't know, Playboy magazine featured like a sweetheart of the month is what they called it, at least back in the 50s. I don't know what it is, what it evolved into. but they used to do Sweetheart of the Month. So this book that I have, the Playmate book, has all of the Playmates over the years. It is a book that is dedicated to the history and the photographs and all sorts of different historical stuff about Playboy, okay? So I ended up ordering this book around the time that I launched Cosmic Counsel, which is when I started working with Marilyn. And that's when I realized that I had some of her nudes because there were 2 books that I bought and her photos are in them. So anyway, set this aside. A year later, okay, I moved into this amazing house. I'm unpacking my office and the Playmate book goes on my coffee table. And I have this glass coffee table with 2 shelves so you can see everything underneath. And so I put the Playboy book or the Playmate book underneath so you can see it, but the top of the glass is a clean surface. So I'm in meditation the other day and she pings me to open the Playmate book. So of course, by this time, I'd completely forgot that I literally have naked photos of her on my coffee table. Like there are multiple photo shoots. So there's the photo of her that was featured in Playboy, and that is what made Playboy famous. That's what kicked off the magazine. If she had not been featured in Playboy, it probably would have died as a publication because nude photographs were like very hush hush. It was more of like a, the back room, hidden, super secretive. But because it was Marilyn Monroe, by the time Hugh Hefner got the rights to one of her photographs to use in the magazine, it completely changed the game because it was Marilyn. So anyway, she has me open up this book. And of course, it's like she is front and center. She is the very first Playmate that is mentioned in this book that I have. And I had never read the full passage until today, actually. And just listen to how amazing this is. And the funny thing is, this sounds an awful lot like something that I mentioned in my podcast not that long ago. And now it's all making sense. So let me read this to you. Roy Kraft, her one-time press agent, said, "She had such magnetism that if 15 men were in a room with her, each man would be convinced that he was the one she would be waiting for after the others had left." And here is the next passage that I found really interesting. In a Time magazine essay, the urge to go nude was her most public whim. And then this is from Marilyn herself. "I dreamed I was standing up in church without any clothes on," she recalled, "and all the people there were lying at my feet." Years later, she posed nude for Christendom's famous calendar, and from that moment on, she was the only blonde in the world. So, of course, I read this today for the very first time. This has been sitting on my coffee table, and I bought this book back in 2020. And the one thing that I want to communicate here is that this is a skill. This is a built skill set. Because in Confidence Codes, if you watched that recently, you know that I mentioned Marilyn Monroe could have just been a blonde. She could have. That could have been the way things ended up panning out. But here, she was the only blonde in the world. That's the way it ended up being. So the interesting thing, I've been really immersed in this work, obviously. And the other night in the kitchen, my sister said something to the effect of, "You know how I see you is people having a really unhealthy obsession with you. People not being able to take their eyes off of you, people wanting to be near you. When you walk into a room, everyone is looking at you and wanting to be near you." And I start cracking up because this could not be further from where my self-concept started. Where it actually started was feeling more invisible. It wasn't so much about my confidence. That wasn't the issue. It was not being seen. And so when my sister told me that, what I was really hearing from her is, this is what's currently present in your energy. This is what you're circulating in your energy. Now, of course, I do think it's really funny that she mentioned like, oh, they have such an unhealthy obsession with you. I thought that was hilarious. And I'm not available for any stalkers, okay? That's not what we're going for here. But it was really funny that even she's reading it on me. And the main thing that I want to let you know is that this is an experience just like anything else. So the experience that she had was obviously a massive amount of energy to hold, a massive amount of attention. And that is not going to be how you want this to manifest for yourself. You're not going to just rocket launch yourself into fame and being bulldozed by paparazzi. That is not for everyone. That's not what we're going for here. What we are going for is magnetism, seduction, people being good to you, getting everything that you want, holding your energy in a way that facilitates all your emotions. One of the other things, I didn't read that passage, but it was talking about how she was a walking contradiction. It was like there's extreme confidence and then extreme insecurity. There was, she's in ecstatic joy and then extremely depressed. She's laughing hysterically and then having a bad day. And what I want to remind you of is that the entirety of you has permission to exist. This is not a game of becoming robotic. Your magnetism isn't found in being pressed and polished, but there is an energetic pattern that you want to tap in order to cultivate more of it. So anyway, that is what I have for you beautiful people today. I just thought that would be a fun story time, hopefully helpful, a really potent reminder that you get to have everything that you want. And I mean that. That's not a joke. That's not a pipe dream. That is not a false promise. That is serious. That is a serious truth that I want you to know. So that's what I have for you today. Thank you so much, you beautiful people. I appreciate you all. Thank you for sharing this and listening. And of course, if you want in the Lost Teachings of Marilyn Monroe, we begin on February 23rd. It's going to be epic. I cannot wait to share this work with you. I've been basking in this for a year. So we're going to have a really good time. I will see you inside. And I'm sending you all so much love. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.